Golladay, who's still available, probably not going to get a big deal. I hit that one out of the park. I think he got a pretty big deal. All right, everybody, welcome aboard here to the Sports Talk Nation. We are back, and we got a lot to discuss. We were on Saturday, and you saw that video. I'm sure a lot of you checked it out as we talked about the Jets free agent frenzy. One thing that we did kind of not discuss too much was a little bit about the Giants. At the time, as you saw in the beginning of the video, I replayed what I said about the Giants, that they hadn't done a lot. Well, lo and behold, moments, maybe even about an hour or so after I had posted that video, what did the Giants do? They go out there and they answer one of their biggest questions in free agency, and they signed Kenny Golladay, wide receiver formerly the Detroit Lions, to a major contract. And then just yesterday, in fact, they go out there and they ink former Tennessee Titans corner Adoree Jackson to a multi-year deal as well. So all of a sudden, a Giants offseason that was going kind of slow, not a lot of moves other than Leonard Williams, all of a sudden started to pick up. And the Giants answered some questions and turned a slow start to the offseason into a very good offseason so far for Big Blue. Now, Golladay, he is a big target, 6'4". He is going to give the Giants that big, deep threat receiver that they haven't had in quite some time. A lot of people say they haven't had that kind of receiver who can stretch the field since maybe Plaxico Burress. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's going to have this kind of success as Burress did for a short period of time, especially during that Super Bowl run back in 2007. But he is a player who comes here having had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons in 2018 and in 2019. 2019 was Galladay's breakout year. 1,190 yards receiving, 11 touchdowns, averaged about 18.3 yards a catch, his best season. He does, like a lot of players, and like we have seen throughout this free agency, does come with a little bit with some risk. Last year was bothered by a hip injury, played only 5 games last season, and of course decided to gamble on himself a little bit. Decided to leave the Detroit Lions, of course that mess down there, and decided to see what he could get in free agency. See if he could get close to about $18 million a year in free agency. And that's pretty much what he got from the Giants. 4 years, $72 million, $40 million guaranteed, and an average about $18 million per year when you go through it. But when you take a look at the cap hit, the one thing the Giants did very nicely was they assured themselves that only $4.5 million of it would be a cap hit for this year. And that money will, of course, increase over the next couple of years when the cap has a little more flexibility. And the Giants do have potential out after the 2023 season. But that being said, a lot of people felt that maybe the Giants overpaid for Golladay. Theoretically, they did. When you take a look at the market and the fact that a lot of people were not paying big money for receivers, someone like a Juju Smith-Schuster made only $8 million for Pittsburgh over 1 year. And really, before the Golladay signing, the biggest contract that was inked was by the Jets with Corey Davis for $27 million guaranteed. Yes, the Giants did theoretically overpay, but the reason they did this, and reason why it's worth the gamble, is because it's going to tell the Giants a lot about Daniel Jones. Because now with all these weapons, if they're all healthy, if Golladay is healthy, if Saquon Barkley is healthy, if Sterling Shepard's healthy, and if Ingram healthy, there is now no excuse now for Daniel Jones not to play well. And the Giants are a year away from being in the same spot that the Jets find themselves in right now with Sam Darnold. So they have a year here with Daniel Jones to say, hey, look, we got you all these big weapons. Let's see how well you now do as the quarterback of this team. Of course, Giants don't have a very good offensive line. They need to address that, and that's something that's going to be obviously their biggest sticking point going into the draft. As far as the Adoree Jackson signing, it now gives the Giants it fills a need for the Giants. They needed another cornerback to put opposite James Bradbury, who was a Pro Bowler last season for the Big Blue. So now they have that solidified. Adoree Jackson's also a returner. He can make returns both on punt returns and kick returns. There is a bit of a caveat when it comes to Adoree Jackson, the fact that he was injured last year, had a knee injury, and only played in 3 games. But when you take a look before the injury occurred, the guy played pretty well, especially his first 2 years, had over 70 tackles each of his first 2 years, had 2 picks back in 2018. So a bit of a gamble again, 3 years, $39 million, but for a team that's trying to solidify that position of corner, it was a gamble that David Gettleman felt he had to make, and why not? So really a good weekend for the New York Giants to go out there and bolster both their receiving core and their secondary going towards the NFL draft. Again, the Giants still have needs. They still have to answer questions about their offensive line. They could still go out there and get another edge pass rusher at some point. Those are questions that they are likely going to be facing towards the draft. Now, another thing here on the Jets, this is a story that came out today. And speaking of Corey Davis, well, he came out there today and said that he expects Sam Darnold to be the Jets quarterback in 2021. Now, I don't know if that tips the hand a little bit of what the Jets are trying to do. We'll talk about that in a second. But so let me pull up the quote here from Corey Davis, this coming from the New York Post, quote, unquote, "That's my understanding. I'm coming in with the understanding that Sam is the guy." He later goes on, does Davis, to praise Darnold. "I've seen Sam do great things and have all the belief in him. He can make some great throws. He's definitely a guy I look forward to working with. He's a great leader. I've heard great things from talking to guys on the team. I look forward to playing with him. He's a competitor. We can both learn from each other. He's young. We're both growing, and we can grow together." Now, what does this all mean? Does this mean that the Jets have told Corey Davis that that Sam Darnold will in fact be the quarterback of this team going forward? I don't know, but I don't know. Or at the very least, Corey Davis certainly has a very good poker face for that matter, and doesn't want to reveal anything that's going on, or maybe he doesn't know what's going on for that matter, with regards to the Jets. The fact is this: the ultimate decision is going to be made by both Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh on Sam Darnold. We know from, like as I mentioned in past videos, the Jets have said, we all know this from the press conference from a few weeks ago, that they are willing to take calls, and that if a call is made, that Joe Douglas will listen. To this point, nothing has happened. At this point, it doesn't sound like there's any real feelers for Darnold at this point. A lot of teams have decided to move on and go ahead with these one-year contracts with a lot of different veteran quarterbacks in the league right now. There was still a possibility of Seattle maybe trading Russell Wilson, maybe the Jets and Sam Darnold getting involved in that. And, of course, then there's the number 2 pick, and the Jets could end up taking Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, whomever of the two they feel is the better quarterback with the number 2 overall pick, or they could trade the pick and trade down and keep Sam Darnold. The ultimate decision, of course, as we all know, is going to be up to Joe Douglas. But at the very least, this is an intriguing quote from Corey Davis because it gives a ringing endorsement to a quarterback who a lot of people think is on the way out. It may or may not mean, it may mean that Darnold's staying. It may mean absolutely nothing. It may end up being just fodder for the media to scoop up and eat up, and for people like us here on YouTube to talk about back and forth for that matter. So, interesting development, interesting quotes to come out of the Jets with Corey Davis. I would assume that the Jets had said something to Corey Davis and to other free agents before players were signing, saying, yes, we have an intention of bringing Sam Darnold back, or no, we do not plan on bringing him back. I'd imagine that conversation at least took place at some point, you would have to think. But, or, as I said before, maybe this is just Corey Davis's way of just trying to say nice things about the guy who's going to end up going out of town eventually. We'll have to wait and see. So, that's a story that's just going to continue to develop over the next several weeks, folks, because we're getting closer and closer and getting closer to the NFL draft. So, and also remember, keep in mind, the Jets also added Sheldon Rankins, a former defensive tackle of the New Orleans Saints. An interesting gamble, a guy who does have a long history of some injuries. At the same time, when he is on the field, at the same time, it is another piece to the defensive line. You can never have enough defensive linemen, for that matter, when you're an NFL team. And from everything that I've heard is that he was pumped up to come here because of his conversations with head coach Robert Saleh. So you have to like that, but at the same time, I would be concerned about the injuries. But like a lot of the players the Jets have added, he is more for depth than anything else. That's going to do it for us here on this video. Remember to follow us on social media at OpenMicNJ on Twitter, Facebook.com/OpenMicProgram. Remember, like and subscribe right here to the Sports Talk Nation. We got baseball. It's hard to believe baseball season's just a little over a week away from starting. So we are going to have some baseball stuff coming up here on the channel in the next several days, if not the next week or so, as we get ready for the Mets, get ready for the Yankees, and get ready for the Major League Baseball season. We'll talk to you next time, folks.